the brokers out there, you can have all the energy in the world, but nothing gets done unless you have the ability to execute. And it's the boring, repetitive part of the job that actually is the difference between being successful in any career, but in particular mortgage broking, or not. And the journey that we've taken is, yes, we started off in financial services, but we always had a real affinity with lending. Australians need debt. They don't just love debt, they need debt. At various stages, they need a roof over their head when they're young. They need to grow with them as they grow in a family.
Welcome to Boothy Bites. So I'm very fortunate today to have Andrew Rocks, my business partner, great friend, and a business partner for many, many years actually, with us today. And what we wanted to talk about really is I want to provide some content and feedback to other brokers, mortgage brokers that is, who are looking at that problem, which is, trying to build an operations team. It's tough, but we do have a lot of experience in building a sustainable global operations team for mortgage broking. So today really is tapping into Andrew's vast amount of knowledge about doing it as a business owner, but also more recently doing it at VBP. So welcome Andrew Rocks to Boothy Bites. There you go. It's a catchphrase. It goes.
Thanks, Chris, aka Boothy. Lovely to be here, and I'm looking forward to imparting a fair bit of knowledge today. So let's rip in.
Perfect. So for those who don't know anyway, Andrew and I worked together. Well, firstly, I met Andrew buying out his old business partner at St. George Bank. Post that, we worked together at the Announcer Group, which was a multifaceted financial services business specialising in financial planning but other services. And then more recently, Andrew's now a senior person and also a shareholder of Virtual Business Partners, which is offers a very large global team of assistants for financial planners and more specialised in financial planning side of things. But look, Andrew, tell us a little bit about that sort of journey, getting involved with this sort of building global teams, and where did that start for you in particular with your businesses?
Well, I think everyone who's met you understands that you're very enthusiastic, and I share that as well. But for all the brokers out there, you can have all the energy in the world, but nothing gets done unless you have the ability to execute. And it's the boring, repetitive part of the job that actually is the difference between being successful in any career, but in particular mortgage broking, or not. And the journey that we've taken is, yes, we started off in financial services, but we always had a real affinity with lending. Australians need debt. They don't just love debt, they need debt. At various stages, they need a roof over their head when they're young. They need to grow with them as they grow in a family. They need to move closer to schools. They need to sometimes help their parents out, their grandparents, and then they might even need to help their children get into property as well. And some of us are fortunate enough, and some of our clients definitely, to invest in property as an asset. So debt is a constant partner in your life, and the reality of when we're working with people to achieve that is a lot of brokers have access to a significant volume of clients. So why is it? What is the difference between their ambition and the ability to work with clients and their settlement numbers or being able to execute? And that is building a back office. 30 years ago, when I started my mortgage broking and financial planning career, a back office just meant literally the office out the back. It was a petition, and they might have been typically someone younger than you who might be looking for a break in the industry, or they might be related to you, or Lord knows. But it worked very, very well. What's happened is, as our country over the last 30 years has become more successful, roles such as that just aren't that appealing for people who are university educated. They aren't that appealing for people to stay in. And what we see very often is even the best quality firms with great cultures still need to be able to provide their back office people with internal promotions. So why I got
just
involved
jumping in quickly,
is... Go for it, Chris.
Tell me about, so you're speaking with Dave Carney. Aspirationally wants to, begin this business, and he happened to be our business coach at the time. What were some of the things that you were thinking about then to support Dave and his vision for this greater group?
Yeah, that's right. Why I got involved in building a global team was very simple. In the noughties, I had a successful business in Sydney CBD, and a lot of the people who came to work with us, who were doing the back office, were aspirational graduates. Young guys, young girls. They dressed up in their suits, their dresses. They were here to take the world on. And the reality is that, the difference of what actually they had to do, being on hold to a bank for 45 minutes to try and get something that should be easy.
I'm sorry,
all this
Jenny.
Really, correct. All of the reality of the job of that there just meant that we weren't facilitating good quality career paths for people, and that kept me awake at night. At the time, my business coach, David Carney, he said we have to solve this problem. And where I am now is not the first incarnation of that. When we first started and we were novices, and I look back now and I'm horrified, is that we thought that you could just do a pay-per job. So what that meant was that, if you're an accountant, you'd pay for someone in another country, for instance, who are quite skilled, might be Vietnam, Sri Lanka, India, to do a piece of work, and they would send it back to you. In financial planning, quite often that's done with paraplanning, and in mortgage broking, quite often there are people who pay per job, and we did initially, which is a great first step, but it has its limitations as well. And if anyone's listening here and they're doing that, the hard thing is you don't keep the same person, they don't get to build a bond with how you do things, and they don't get to understand the types of clients you've got, which is very important if you've got clients that are niche or geographically located or sophisticated. So you're missing out on being able to train them on the way that you want them done. So we decided that we needed to have a dedicated model where, although the team member might be located in a different country, and this particular country we chose was the Philippines due to many reasons, they are still in your team. They can have the Lydian t-shirt, they can be part of your team, they can get excited when people settle, they can get disappointed when they get knocked back. They can be part of that whole ethos which promotes better team culture, higher retention of your team, and also just more discretionary effort. Being in mortgage broking, we all know that it takes that discretionary effort sometimes to get settlements done today and not be bullied into making it in a week's time.
Two quick things I really like about that. Firstly, the consideration. Obviously, we're all sat there thinking, right, how can I save a buck? Yeah, okay, I get it. It's expensive to recruit locally. Domestic office space is expensive to place that labour as well. And that sort of saving of $1 is obviously very important, and silly not to consider that. But the biggest thing you mentioned there about that is that you're not only just considering that cost factor, but you're wanting people to participate in the culture, the fun, the benefits of the business that they're working for, which I think is really important. And I think some of the things which definitely resonate with me in the early days, I saw that person as a bit of a hand them the work, it's got to be done quickly and get it back to me. And I've probably failed at the time to recognise that it was a person at the end of that sort of workflow and process, and that they generally wanted to find out more about me, what I did at home, where I hung out on the weekends and things like that, and becoming more sort of attuned to that. Hopefully we've kind of captured that DNA and is sort of 2.0 of using the virtual business partner services, but that definitely resonates with me. So, as you said before, if you were doing it today, what would be some of the key elements you'd want to focus on more then?
Oh, the number one element is to throw your perceptions and preconceptions out the window. These are people that are going to be working for you at the other end of a Zoom or a MS Teams. They have exactly the same aspirations as any of your Australian talent. And let me just start with saying that the building a global team does not mean reducing the size of your Australian team, okay? So what I would ask anyone listening to this, say you've got someone in loan packaging or loan administration, I would sit them down with a whiteboard and I would ask 3 questions, because this needs to be a positive journey for them to buy into the process, or else you're just going to go in circles. So we're there with the whiteboard. Question number 1, you might ask, what are the 5... Chris, why don't I do this with you? So Chris, you're working as an administration person in a mortgage broking practice, successful one. What are the 5 most repetitive, time-consuming activities that you're currently doing that you'd love to never do again? Go for it.
Saving documents into the safe place where I'm supposed to be saving my documents. That's number 1, rather than in my email. Data entry of that, extracting that data from those documents and putting it into a system.
So like into the CRM or apply online, all that sort of stuff? Yep.
Oh, telephone call on hold to the lender. Yeah, for sure. That one's a massive bugbear,
and the genesis of why we started that business. So, what else?
Look, I think the biggest one for me is at the end of the journey of the loan transaction, just making sure that all of those key files, being the compliance documents, but also the tick the boxes for your aggregator, are all in place in that file at the end of the journey as well. So someone basically mopping up behind me, picking up those pieces of paperwork and making sure it's in the right place. I'd say keeping me in business, I think that's the biggest thing, yeah.
That's right, and compliance isn't going away. So thanks, Chris. And so we write those lists list down. We write those key things down. And I've been doing this many times. And just for the people listening who don't know me, I have 1,500 employees. And a reasonable cohort are working in this role. Some are supporting financial planning. Some are supporting para planning. Some are supporting accounting. But the reality is, those 5 things, for the average mortgage broking office or assistant, what percentage of your day would be associated with the 5 things that you've just mentioned, Chris?
Oh, it's a huge amount of labour. I don't know, if you were doing that as an operations person, I'd say the data entry file hygiene process takes over an hour per file, maybe more, and more complex deals. Yeah, and I think, if you're aspirational, you want to be speaking to clients, having relationships with clients and doing the fun things. So, yeah, I don't know.
What's the percentage?
Oh God, 50-60% of the time doing the tough things.
Well done. So for those listening, also clearly we didn't speak about these questions before. You've got a pretty broad answer. I get 40 to 60% all the time. Okay.
Well,
so what that means is 40 to 60% of the time taken from your back office team who are helping you write credit is in roles that they would love to never do again. Okay, so just think about that. So think about that hopefully before they resign. And in addition, what we then would encourage you to do is sit down with them and say, if you didn't have to do 50% of your role, what would you like to do? And then crucially, you've got to shut up and take notes. So Chris, if you put your hat on again, if you didn't have to do those roles in your Australian office as the head of credit or whatnot for the broking firm, what would you like to do with your time?
Oh, look, aspirationally for me, it's all about meeting clients, meeting more referral partners, just basically, doing the things that I enjoy, just talking to people, providing advice, helping more people, do more reviews, do more positive things with the time I've got on hand in building, maintaining relationships. So yeah, keeping busy on that front.
Perfect. And yet again, no matter how many times I run through this scenario, there's really 2 broad sort of topics that come out. The first one is the operations team want to buy time for their brokers. They want to do things that directly mean that their broker or their brokers have more time. Now, why that is because quite often they see them being overworked. But in addition, if they're part of the team, they know that the broker's got more time with the clients. There's going to be more revenue into a business that I get paid by and potentially I'm part of on a commercial basis, means more bonuses, better valuation of a firm, etc. So it's really heading in the right direction.
Yeah,
but the other part of what they're very interested in is they want to do things that's closer to the client, okay? They don't want to be on hold to bank X, Y, and Z for 37 minutes. The clients don't know, they don't care. What they care about is the communication to them, keeping them up to speed, okay? Every single negative and positive outcome in mortgage broking has got to do with communicating. So if they had more time, they would communicate more. So what I would impose upon people is when you're looking to build a global team, it's not to replace your existing team. It's to leverage them. Potentially you might leverage them all the way up to business writing. I mean, that's an objective and that's what happens in financial advice and also in mortgage broking as well. But what that also means is that as they then build out a team, your office manager has a vested interest in making this. Effectively, your middle office learns to outsource. So that's a key pillar of why you should do it, and it's getting your current Australian-based team members to be their better selves. Because if you do, you'll reap lots of rewards, and if you don't, they will just leave. We've got record low unemployment, and if you're not providing them an environment with which they can succeed, they'll leave.
I like the fact that you kept mentioning team there, team. So the big thing for us, we're very fortunate. Lydian, it's taken us a little while now to not just have one person supporting an operations person locally. We've actually built out 10 people doing it, and they've got their own little team within our team, which I think is very important. But if you're a mortgage broker out there who has there's a few of you, trying to build that business. You've got one administration person, giving that operations person in your domestic office the ability to help and build out a bigger team, that's pretty important too. So look, I think we all understand, the financial merits and, the time merits of building out, a global team in this fashion. We've talked a little bit about the culture and things like that, and I know there's been a swag of BPOs coming through to me personally to say, have you got a problem with administration? Would you like some help and things like that? Let's focus on virtual business partners for a while, because you and I know we're very passionate about that business and the thing Dave Carney, Dave Deegan and the great group have done there. Tell us a bit about that DNA, and obviously yourself, Andrew. I mean, you're a big contributor to that group too. Why is it different, and what's the point of difference for VBP? I'd love to hear your sort of thoughts on that.
Yeah, so the first point I'll make is that and this is specific to the Philippines and probably correct for other countries where Australia partners with, if these people who work in these businesses and aspire to work in these businesses, they're educated. They've probably done an undergraduate degree in accounting or finance or commerce. They may have done a master's. Their universities are equivalent. When they come out and they graduate, there's no unemployment for these people, okay? Gets worse. As Australians, we're the lowest payers because as great English-speaking sort of graduates, they can work for American firms or European firms. So there's only two key reasons why they work for Australian firms. And when I tell you this is the answer to your question. The first one, very mechanical, is that they're in the Western Australian time zone, but they come to work at 7 o'clock. So they're working when your brokers are working. Okay, we're 3 years into or out of COVID. Every broker knows how to use Slack, Teams, Zoom. There's constant chat, right? So what that means is you're only a nanosecond away from fixing a problem or answering a question or escalation, and that's how they get their learnings. So that sounds really good from the perspective of the clients and the brokers, but it's actually really awesome for the Filipinos as well, because if they work for American or European, they work shift work. Okay, so when they work for us, and just reverse that out, they're very similar to the types of people that you would employ in Australia. They're typically 25 to 30 years old, 70% of them are women, and a lot of them have either got families or aspirational to it. So by working along these lines at VBP, they can do pick up or drop off. They can grab their kid for basketball or violin. They can live a normal lifestyle without having to infringe on their family time. And family's critical in the Philippines, as it is with most other countries. So the second reason is, when I look back, there's no unemployment. So when they're coming out and they can work for anyone, they can work for Deutsche Bank or Goldman Sachs or Deloitte, or they can work for XYZ mortgage brokers in Terrigal, New South Wales. Now, I can tell you their parents will want them to work for the big ticket items. But if the reality is, if they're working for Mary and Greg at Terrigal, the two founders, the two key brokers, and they work with them and they've spoken with the CEO, the head broker, etc., that carries massive credibility in the family structure. So, and especially so, the more human you can be with them, the more you can share what you're doing, your family, what you're eating, what you're into, the more they feel that, they then convey that to their family. And critically, and this is also going to, I suppose, dispel some myths, in the Philippines, if you're university educated, your parents have probably paid full fees for a private school. And for everyone who's sending their kids to private schools in Australia, that's a lot. You've then had to pay full fees to send them to university. And there's no old age pension effectively. So when your children graduate, I call children 25 to 35-year-olds, when they graduate, it's assumed that 20 to 30% of their income will go directly to their parents. So we're often laugh. You should interview the parents and tell the children if they've got their job. So what that ultimately means is that we need something that's going to bond with their hierarchy. So at the beginning, I went through why you get your Australian team to buy into this. If you're back office in Australia, so say for instance you're a couple of brokers, you might have one or two people in Australia, by doing this exercise and by actually getting a global team together, you're actually ticking the big box with them. Remember, they've got the extra time, they can do the aspirational things. They're then going to be motivated to teach your team as fast as possible how to do those repetitive tasks, okay? Now, our team are not going to mind doing those repetitive tasks because they're going home to their parents saying, Mary and Greg from Terrigal has just sent me an Insta or a Facebook saying, have a good time. Their parents are promptly showing everyone in the village and dropping the mic, okay? Because I doubt their friends are getting text messages from Jeff Bezos or someone like that, right? So that's it. And you know what I might do, Chris, is I might provide somewhere we've written a culture book.
Oh, yep,
so that's the first thing. The second thing is people in other countries want exactly the same. It's not just about an income. They want to feel like they're belonging. They want a career path. They want to learn. Okay, at VBP, we're part of an RTO where we do the Cert 4 in mortgages, the Diploma of Paraplanning. We're doing continual professional development points. If you ask a millennial or a Gen Y or Gen Z, money is one part. They want to know their career progression. They want to know where they're going. They also want to have a purpose. What charities are you doing? Okay, how are you giving back? What's your purpose as a company? So what I'm imparting on you, or upon you, is that exactly the same rationale for building an Australian team is why you would build a global team. And if you get that, and VBP not only gets it, we're a certified great place to work in the Philippines, then you're going to partner up with people who share your vision.
That's pretty cool. Oh, look, I think firstly, there's a lot of passion in the way you tell that story, and I think, look, I've seen pictures of you in the Philippines with people who've kind of walked over to you with like little cutout pictures of Roxy on their faces, and they're a beautiful bunch of guys and girls, and they love it, and they can't wait to see that their Australian employers or senior team or managers come over from Australia, but vice versa. I think one of the greatest things that happened for us was when Leilani, who's one of our first staff members for Announcer, actually was able to come to Australia, visit us in our offices here. She even took my dog for a walk, Teddy, down at beach, which is a privilege. I think, if you know me, I don't share my dog time with many people. So it's great to have them as part of the family, and that's a big point of difference, I think, for virtual business partners. And definitely the enthusiasm that you've got for the team over there is pretty huge, mate. So yeah, well done.
Thanks, Chris. And look, you did flick me a note, okay? Just a text halfway through this session saying, what are your tips for people looking for outsourced operations, okay? Now, many people listening here might have thought about it. Yes, we are virtual business partners. You can look us up, and we're very proud of what we do, and we're one of the industry's largest and leading ones. But the other tips that I would give is that there's no point going and building a global team if you don't have an infrastructure for learning and development. If you're just paying $2,500 or $3,000 per month instead of $6,000 or $10,000 per month, but those people in your Australian office are spending all their time teaching other people, it makes no sense. It's actually negative for both people. You need to go with a group that's a specialist, not a generalist, okay? So, and why that means is that they've taken the time to map out, the Mercuries, the Sales Tracker, the Apply Online, the My CRM. They've actually, someone else has done that job for you, and by coming on, you've benefited from the economies of scale, okay? They've taken the time to build an learning and development plan. So all these things you do. And in addition to that, you want to be able to build out your operational back office. Now, coming from financial planning as well, we've gone through 10 years of regulatory tightening, and mortgage broking probably will go through something like that at some stage. The reality is that what that means is that businesses will move potentially from a recurring income as a valuation to an EBITDA. They'll become proper businesses, they'll grow up. And the only way that you can run proper businesses that kick out profit for your shareholders, who may or may not be part of your business, is by making sure that you've got great capacity and capability. So don't go to somewhere who hasn't done it before. I'm not necessarily saying that virtual business partners is the be-all and end-all, but you definitely need to do your homework and just see if they've done all of that sunk cost. Because if the sunk cost is not done, guess who's sinking the cost? You. So
yeah, exactly.
That would be my advice.
I think there's a quick take on that for me is that virtual business partners have been around, nearly 8 years, 9 years now? Or is it 10 years? Long
Very
time.
close to 10, Chris.
Yeah, so, and that maturity in the services that they're providing, not only as a generalist but as a specialist, is building incremental layers in there. And more recently, we're very fortunate in Lydian to have some senior mortgage broking assistants now with over 2 years tenure. We've even got a subject matter expert in the team now, with someone who's got not only the tenure being sort of 5 years at VBP, but also has got a lot of experience and is actually doing some of the technical parts of the application now, like serviceability calculators, structuring some of the debt. Obviously the broker's got the oversight and providing the advice, but removing some of these more technical components to the work has been important for us, and you can only do that with time and maturity, but also that incremental learning and development. So I want to congratulate virtual business partners for one, embracing the Cert 4 as an elementary qualification, but more importantly, on a monthly basis we get the lenders to do training and development, which is recorded, and then we do sort of process around that, and also having a strong hierarchy of mentoring and buddy system within the group, which really makes a difference not only for VBP and the businesses which are engaging those guys, but for me as a business owner, we certainly benefit from that platform of education. The other thing I just want you to quickly touch on before we close, because I think it's important where people skip over it. I just had a telephone call from Marco before, which is one of our SFG guys, about our cyber security. Many of the BPOs that call me to say, can you do you want to use someone? The first thing I ask them is about cyber security, purely for the fact I know VBP has got that covered. Tell me a little bit about that, Andrew.
Yeah, well, I think it's now a pretty relevant topic for what's going on in the world. The reality is that, like building out your learning and development, Virtual Business Partners has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars US per year in obtaining and retaining ISO 27001 data security quality assurance. Okay, things like your aggregator needs to approve, right? So we need to work with your aggregator. We have got approvals with the aggregators to operate. We've got password management, where our team members never see a password. They're able to use your thing. There's a whole ecosystem around it. Plus, we've also got cyber security insurance and various PIs. But the key is that you really need to involve, whether you're a financial planner or mortgage broker or accountant, you need to involve your licensee, whether it be an aggregator or a financial services license, in this decision making, okay? Because they're the ones that have the liability. They're the ones fronting up to court if there's a problem. But guess what? That problem cascades to you, right? So at Virtual Business Partners, and indeed Lydian, and Lydian has, I know, a lot of financial planning firms and a lot of AFSLs as authorised, and Virtual Business Partner is authorised with a lot of aggregators. They've done the hard yards. And as you know with corporates, these things take time. So they could take 6 months to a year to get these through the compliance and governance. But critically, if you're cutting that corner and something happens, your professional indemnity insurance, your aggregator, they've got no time for people who are going to bring down not just them, but the overall industry. So look for ISO 27001 as a minimum benchmark, okay? And Virtual Business Partners also taken the step to, we subscribe and we do the modern slavery audit, which we do for businesses that are quite big globally. And that's a global initiative to ensure that people's livelihoods are not being exploited. And we definitely wouldn't be a great place to work if that was the case. But this is all about working with people for them to achieve their goals. And at the same time, they put a fire underneath your business. Let me tell you, if each one of your team members can work 35 hours a week and you're either a one-man broker, 2, 3, 4, whatever, just imagine what you would do if you could get offlay 35 hours of what you're currently doing. Okay? It's actually scary. And, you know, we're not Robinson Crusoe. There are a lot of brokers doing it. It's the difference between people who settle $8 to $10 million each a month and people who settle 1 to 2. And that's it. That's it. I think everyone's got the same passion and intent, and skills can be learnt. But if you haven't got time, it doesn't matter how smart you are. You just don't get around to it. And mortgage settlements don't wait for brokers who don't have time. If you've got time and you can do turnarounds and you work with partners, you'll get that great reputation. The business will just keep flowing to you.
I love it. I've written so many notes, Andrew. I tell you, it's all the textbook when we were thinking about Lydian back then. But for me, we're recruiting staff members who we put on a pretty rigid learning and development course. You know, we're celebrating together. We're celebrating successes. Virtual Business Partners as a partner for this service is very important because they put the fundamentals and that platform in place for us to do that. We're then putting our DNA of Lydian, our heart and soul and our culture and our sort of energy and vibe onto it, which I think is important. And I think more importantly that these guys and girls who are working for us, they're building out a sustainable, long-term, scalable operations team for our brokers to plug into. Now, it takes a lot of effort to do that. You and I know I spent quite a long time training and putting these things together for the guys when they first join, but we're now reaping the benefits of that because our guys are now actually mentoring and training the next person coming in and the next person coming in. So we're building that sort of repetitive DNA in the system, which I think is huge. And that's in a big thanks to VBP for putting the effort and the time into that service. And thanks for you for sharing your thoughts about not only Virtual Business Partners but your backstory. So how do people get in contact with you for Virtual Business Partners, Andrew, to talk about building an operation, a global team for operations?
Well, the great thing about having a pretty interesting surname is Andrew Rocks. You can grab me on LinkedIn and you can reach out to me there, or alternatively you can go to virtualbusinesspartners.com.au and follow the bouncing ball. But before I finish up, Chris, it's been one-way traffic as far as thanks and praise, but I'm here to tell you that what Lydian has done in the brief period of time, in the couple of years that it has done to build out, Lydian is best of breed even within our cohort. It's the most efficient and highest producing back office in our mortgage broking ecosystem across dozens and dozens and dozens of quality practices. So you drank from the Kool-Aid. You listened, you learned, you put your human heart on it, and you deserve everything that you're reaping. So well done, Chris.
Perfect. And obviously, if a broker wants to join Lydian, we're here to share that sort of excellence with what we've built and created for brokers. But if you just want to speak to me and talk about, how we got started, what our thought process was, and I'm happy to share a bit of that Kool-Aid at the Pitt Street office sometime. Yeah, more than happy to catch up. But it's been really interesting to chat, Andrew. I know we probably have these chats 1,000 times a day, but to capture it in this format for me is wonderful, and to share it with our peers and things in the industry is also wonderful. So thanks very much for your time, mate. We'll go grab a Kool-Aid now. Have a great night.
Cheers, Chris. Have a great day. Cheers,
Ciao.
everyone. Bye.